This is a vase, and I'm going to turn this vase into a diorama, a fantasy diorama, if you will. So, in order to get the gist of what I am talking about, I want you to close your eyes real quick before I continue talking. So, right now, close your eyes and picture this scene. So, picture you're the main character in your favorite video game, your favorite RPG video game. And during this, you're about to face the final boss. And what happened was you fought many enemies, and the final boss actually killed your best friend in the video game. And so now you are mad. You are mad. You are very angry, and all the rage is building up inside of you. You defeated all of his minions before getting to him, and you finally enter his chambers of entering his doorway. So now you are angry, and you start pounding on the door, pounding on the door, pounding on the door, trying to break it open. Finally, you're able to break it open, and the door flings off. It flings off the hinges. Now the door is on the ground, and the king, or the final boss, is looking down at you in a confident pose in his chair with his crown, maybe, and his feet up, looking like this, unamused with what you just did. And now you stand up on top of the door and you raise your sword towards him, challenging him. That is the type of scene I am trying to create in this diorama for this vase that I made. And I didn't introduce myself. My name is Nick Torres, and I create pottery, and I turn them into dioramas because I am a huge nerd, and that's what I like to do. So that's exactly the scene I'm going to be painting. So the first thing I have to do first is I have to cut this open. Hopefully I didn't wait for it to get a little bit too hard, because I did make this a little while ago. So hopefully nothing goes wrong, but from the feel of it, it seems fine. So first thing I have to do is I have to cut this open. So I'm thinking I want to keep the lip of the vase here, but I don't want. Maybe I'll do we'll just start cutting, because sometimes the best thing to do is just to simply start. So I have my X-Acto knife thing here. So I actually ended up cutting into the lip. I think that's going to make it a little bit easier to make the diorama. Oh, I've never cut something like this. Woo. Think about right there. Okay. Okay, and as you can see, I'm literally just cutting it pretty much in half, or cutting a section out of it, because what's the diorama that I pictured you earlier, that's where it's going to be at. It's going to be inside the vase. Ooh. It didn't go all the way. Ooh. This is a thick vase. It's kind of hard to cut. I think my X-Acto knife is indeed bending. This is hard. Okay, we're almost there. Okay, I did cut it a little low, but it should be fine, just because. Okay, well, that was a lot harder to cut than what I was imagining. Okay, so now inside this area right here, this is where the rest of the diorama will pretty much be. And I may have to change a few things, because what I was picturing was some stairs while the king boss dude was looking down upon you. So I may have to just do a little like ledge, I guess you could say, in order to make that, because you know every time I think about an idea for these dioramas and these like vases and the mugs, I always drastically underestimate the size of the actual piece. Like normally when I'm creating my mugs, like this one, for example, is like it. I usually have a scene going on in my head already, but then I always mess up on the size of it. I always end up trying to do way too much, or I always think about way too much before actually being able to do it, and I have to end up simplifying it, and that's pretty much the same thing here. So I didn't get any water. I will be paused real quick, getting some cold water because that's all I have. The water is very important to making anything in pottery. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I have to smooth out all of these, if you can see that right there, all of these little edges right here. And I have to smooth that out because then it won't really look too good. So now I have my cold water, which kind of sucks. Should have prepared a little bit better, but I just kind of forgot. It's fine. Okay, so now this is a little bit more smooth out, as you can kind of see there. I'm just simply taking my sponge and I'm literally just pressing in and making it a little smoother. Man. Okay, so now that that's a little bit smoother, I can now move on to what I'm thinking is, because I can't really do too much, because I definitely thought this was going to be wider, even though I made it small like this on purpose, so I may have to change up a few things, but we'll just play it by ear, I suppose. So the first thing I wanted to do was be able to make a staircase, and might be a little hard. I guess I could go, so instead of, so I was picturing it where you're looking, so you're trying to, you look, it looks like it's going to be walking into the throne room of the final boss. But what I guess I could do, so I could put it on the side right here, not make, might make it a little easier. I'll just have to cut out some of the the doors. I won't be able to add the doors really, but I could definitely do that. So if I put it on this side right here and put it all the way up, let me see here. Okay, so I definitely have to get quite a bit of clay, and I'll have to either squeeze it like that and maybe flatten like this part right here, maybe flatten that a little bit, and pretty much just have it like a ledge like that, and we'll have the king or the final boss dude in his chair, or maybe just looking over the edge right here, because I may not be able to do a chair either, just because the vase is rather narrow. I think I want the ledge to be a little bit more out. Let me grab some more clay. Okay, so I think doing something like that, I think that could go decently well. But because I guess I'm making it into a cliff, I got to make it a little bit, I got to add some texture. So what I'm going to do here, I'm actually going to smooth this in so it doesn't fall out before I add the texture. So I can do one of two things. So the first thing I'm going to try here is I'm simply just going to like carve away real quick like this with my X-Acto knife. I'm literally just cutting. Although it's not working too well, I'll try my next method next, which will probably be a little bit better. I want it to look like a rocky terrain, kind of. The plan has definitely already changed since I first started. Came up with this idea for sure, but that's where a lot of the fun comes up. So that didn't really do too much. You can't really tell. It was dark. Let me turn on the light. Actually, that's a little better. So you can't really tell too well if it's doing okay. So I have some aluminum foil here. When I'm just going to literally just roll it around. That's giving it a little bit of a better texture look to it. So I'm rolling around. That's all I'm doing to get that texture look. I actually learned this while watching a video by NerdForge, and because they make dioramas themselves, but their dioramas are much cooler than mine because they've been doing it longer, and I just started making dioramas myself. But I learned this technique simply because they make a lot of rocky texture themselves. So this is what they did. Well, they did a version of this where they flattened out the aluminum foil and then they poured plaster in there. So then all the plaster that got onto the aluminum foil, it made that rocky texture. But I'm just simply rolling it around, which works just as well with this type of clay. Because this is clay that needs to be fired in the kiln, so it has to be moist beforehand in order to work things around. So that is I'm actually going to chop some of this off because that's a bit long. Point it a little bit further. Okay, let me flatten this out. Go back to the texture. Punch it a bunch. Make it a little bit pointier. Okay, that actually looks decent like a rock. And now I'm also going to cut this off at an angle because I want it to look like it's like flowing naturally almost, not like where it's on there, or that kind of tell that I put it on there. I think that is closer. That was disgusting. Okay, so now I'm gonna attach this because now I think it's actually good enough. So I'm gonna wet it a bunch, all right here. I got my cold ass water. Gonna put a bunch of water there. Normally I would use slip, and I didn't grab the bucket that has my slip in there. So I'm gonna put a bunch of water there, bunch of water on my actual cliff here, and I'm just gonna attach it onto the side of the base by, luckily this is actually kind of a little bit firm, at least the base is a little bit firm, so if I touch it, it's not gonna like break or warp any more than it should. Oh, you know what I could do is I could add some texture around this part of the base where I cut it. So now it kind of looks a little bit like it's flowing together. Oh, good idea, Nick. It looks a little bit better. Now it kind of looks like it's natural a little bit instead of just being the vase. So like if you can tell, can't really tell from that. As you know, I don't have the best equipment, but we are here. Okay, I really want to make sure it is stuck on there. Because if it's not stuck on there, then that could cause problems later when I go to fire it or when I go to attach the kingly dude. Okay, so now that I have this attached, I think everything's actually going to be a little bit easier per se. So I'm going to make the king boss dude first. So what I'm thinking is, because I kind of scratched the early idea where I was going to have it look like a king that is like uninterested in what the main character or whatever is doing because of his rage fit. But instead, I'm gonna just have him where he's looking down on the character below, like here. So like the king will be here, and the main character will be here, or the mad character, I guess you could say, will be here, and the king will be looking down like he is superior to him in a way. That is the plan, at least. You know, if I was really savvy, I would put some, maybe like some rocks down there. You know what? We're going to do exactly that. So I'm just going to place some rocks just all around here. Luckily, I kind of already am just kind of seeing where it would look good. Okay, so that kind of, I could also do waves. Waves could be a good idea. But also, I've never made waves before. Granted, I've never made a cliff before either, but a cliff compared to waves is a little bit easier to make. I think that looks like a wave. So if I did waves, a bunch of them, we'll just do a bunch of rocks. And we'll do the same thing here. Just texture it up a bit. And then add some water where I want to place the rocks at. Texture, texture, texture. I'm also going to add a little bit more. I guess I should have left all that right there. That makes it look a little bit more natural. Texture this up, texture this up. Gotta get that rocky thing. Oh yeah, that looks a little bit better. It doesn't look so much like it's like slanted, I guess, or attached. Definitely looking a lot better. Let me smooth this out. This is like the best tool I have. This shish kebab thingy mabobber. It literally helps so much with everything. I could like add some texture if I want, like this. Ooh, that actually looks pretty good. I can smooth it out. I can make things connected. That actually came out really good. Wow. Who would have thought? I'll continue doing that. Do that on this one too. I thought. Okay. So now I think I'm gonna actually start the king dude. I don't know the exact design I'm gonna give him. It may not even be a king dude. But what I am thinking is like a strong type character. So what I'm doing here is I gotta kind of measure up how tall I want my king thingy bobber dude to be. And I don't think he should be too tall because it kind of has to be a perspective thing, right? So if he's too tall, he's gonna look like a giant up here, and while this guy is gonna be like normal sized or smaller probably as well, that wouldn't look too good. So I have to make him probably a little bit smaller. That's just what I'm thinking here. So this is probably that's like the torso of how small I'm going to make it. The thing about creating small characters, it can actually be kind of hard to make. So wish me luck. I definitely find making smaller characters a little bit more challenging. Although I don't have to put as much detail in them, so they do have their benefits. So right now I'm adding the chesticles or the pectorals. I like to call them chesticles. And then I do that simply by getting a little ball of clay and attaching it there. Get the basic chest shape. I just bit my tongue. Kind of hurt. I got the basic shape of the chest right there, and I'm going to use my shish kebab thingy. I'm going to smooth it out. And I'm not going to add any abs to this just because they're so small, and you wouldn't really be able to see them anyways. But you can definitely see the chest, at least the chest shape. It could give even if I add up the shirt later, it could give it its form just a little bit. And what I'm actually ending up doing, I'm actually going to end up giving it a shirt. That's a bit. We'll see here. I may not even add much detail to this king dude. Just be kind of by his lonesome. He'll be naked. Ugh. Okay, I need to see what would look good. What pose would look good for this kingly character, because I wanted to looking down, but what pose would that be? Would it be just straight up and down pose where you're just kind of standing, maybe like your back a little hunched over because you're looking down, obviously, or do I want him to be like kneeling down while looking at him? I think if he's a confident character, like what I kind of want, I'm thinking the standing up and maybe like looking down, maybe sideways looking at him. That might look best for him. We'll try that. So standing up and sideways there. So kind of sideways like that. Looking down, I guess it'll be close to the edge like that. Okay, is that proportionate to the rest of the body? I think it's proportionate, at least proportionate enough, because I'm not planning on adding feet to these small characters because doing stuff like feet for tiny characters, feet and hands, absolute worst because you got to get so much little detail and it's just not a good time. And when you have not having a good time, you're just not having a good time. Okay, so now I need to add the second leg. Okay, so I'm gonna have them like that, looking. If you're able to see, let me switch my left hand. So that is kind of like how it's gonna look, more or less. With him, ooh, it's good thing I didn't attach that yet. Let me attach that first. So this is quite a small character. Gotta add the buttocks. Added the butt. It's pretty much the same thing like added the chest. You flatten out the clay, and then you attach the water to the clay, and then you attach the right butt cheek, and you got the left butt cheek as well. Give him some little buttocks. Okay, so just a little bit better. Okay, not a little bit. Okay, now that I have the legs attached, now comes the pose of the arms. If somebody was looking down, switch my left arm again. If somebody was looking down this way, what type of things, what would they do with their arms? What type of, if you were looking down a cliff, what are you doing with your arms? Are you right next to each other? But if it's a confident character, like maybe he just pushed them over the edge, what would that look like? In my mind, he wouldn't be like this, kind of like the Superman pose. That's definitely not the pose he would be in. He would probably be in a pose that is either like this, like like crossing your arms, or he might just have his arms to his side. Maybe it's one arm up, one arm to his side. But if he's looking down, I think it should just be his arms to his side, not necessarily up, not necessarily doing anything else. I think just to the side, maybe a little bent. I think that's probably the best look if he's looking down, and maybe put more emphasis on the back, like his his shoulders are a little hunched over because he is looking down. And when I do the head, I can emphasize the head looking down as well. Ah, that's pretty good, Nick. Give myself some props on that one. Okay, so again, I'm not really putting too much detail in these smaller characters because the overall piece will just kind of, I guess, play together. So there it is. There is the arm. I might add a little bit of biceps to him, or at least some shoulder blades or shoulder muscles. So it gives it a little bit better. Okay, so that is what he'll kind of look like when he is finally standing here. Get the other arm. Not enough clay. That's too much clay. Better have too much than not enough. Okay, so I gotta bend it a little bit. So let's attach this pupper. This one's a bit long. Do this. Move it out. I may have to end this early. I am coughing a lot. I want to at least finish this king confident character. Let's just call him the villain. Let's call him Todd. Todd. Todd the villain. If it was a girl, I would have named it Vicky. Vicky the villain. Okay, so now I'm going to make the head. And luckily for me, because I'm not adding too much detail to this character, I don't need to get super crazy with the head by adding eyes and stuff. Because adding eyes, making stuff can be hard. Adding eyes is actually probably the hardest thing to do with a character this small. And there's no way I'm trying to even attempt that right now. Okay. Take off some clay. And normally when I'm doing a head shape, you have to do like finagle it a little bit because it's not just a circle. But like, if you look at kind of like my head right here, it comes out a little bit. It's like the back of the head. If you look at the back of the head right here, that's like round, and then like right here, like where my jawline kind of starts for my beard. That's where like the face starts. And I learned that actually kind of by accident. I was just kind of watching on YouTube where he pretty much just sculpts a bunch of like things. And this is like when I was learning how to sculpt. I saw him do that. I was like, oh, that's interesting. That explains why my head wasn't actually looking like a head. It was looking just more like a freaking circle. To give a little bit more depth to it, you could cut off the edges right here so it's not so round as well. So that is actually a decently, and I can like slant it a little bit to get a little bit more of a look. And now I gotta add the neck to it. Can't have a head without a neck. Unless you're like a pig. Do pigs have necks? Or is a pig just one giant thing? Just like long thing? It's a good question. Do pigs have necks? Okay, now I gotta make it flat by cutting it like that. Also gotta bend it downward because looking down. And I think I'll add more detail once I paint these things. I just don't have the underglazes or the resources to really paint them. I'm gonna do this to the pants though, to the legs. Give it some texture. Maybe this, this. Just adding some type of, so it doesn't just look like a little thingy. Kind of reminds me of Baymax from Big Hero 6, mainly because this isn't long enough. My legs aren't long enough. Okay, I think that was a little better. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of these like wire stuff. It's high temperature wire. I've never actually used it, at least in a kiln before. I've used it for other characters. So I have no idea if this will actually work or not. I am just crossing my fingers and it will. Ow. Okay. So all I'm going to do to make it easier to stick is I'm simply just going to stick the aluminum wire into the legs at the bottom of it. And then I'm going to stick it in. Ooh, that's coming out the knee. Okay, and I'm going to wet this part down right here. Get as close as possible. And I'm going to stick it in there. That's what she said. Okay. Well, that looks actually kind of good. What I'm actually going to do is I'm kind of changing the whole thing a little bit, mainly because my nose is stuffy and I'm coughing a lot. So I'm just going to add some more rocks and maybe I'll add another character later, but who knows? So I'm just going to add some more rocks to this, get it filled with them. Add some more texture right here. And that's exactly why I used the wire, because you can see it moving right here. Even though I added the water and I added the wire, it still moves and the wire keeps it there. So it's definitely something I really hope works, because that would kind of suck if it doesn't. It just keeps it in place, especially because I have a really wobbly table. Not really preferred for sculpting, but gotta work with what you got. I'm just gonna put a bunch of these little all over the place. Just to give it a little bit more pizzazz. I don't know if some of these are actually going to stick. If it falls off, it falls off. It will for sure stick once I glaze it, as long as it doesn't fall off. Okay, that gave it a little bit more oomph to it. I guess I'll make another character. You know what I could do instead? So instead of making the character like right here, I can make the character right here almost look like he's climbing up, and then that could be like a guard or something. Oh, that was a good idea. I was actually planning on ending it after I added those, because I have a cough, and talking a little bit is making it a little bit harder to keep my cough in. But we will see. So okay, so what I remember, so I have to have it like my one arm up, one arm like this, and like my legs kind of doing, its own thing. Okay, so I have to have it kind of like that. Out a little bit. So if I have it like that, and the arm is essentially just hiding from that dude. So add that like that. So bent a little bit. Squeeze that. And this is where the wire is going to come in so much clutch right now. So I'm going to be able to stick it to the actual clip that I made. I've changed this design like 4 times already since just starting this live. I did have an idea for a clip one where it was basically like the kind of like an origin story for like the main character. And basically, what was going to happen was I was going to have it look like a, like I guess the big bad, the main villain, cut off the main character's arm, and he was about to throw him off the cliff, and like holding him by one arm. And I was going to try to make it look like that what I described, where the main character, or the villain, chopped off the arm, and the arm would be like here or something, and just like dangling there, and then the villain would just be there about to throw him off the cliff with waves and stuff. But I like the original idea I had for this one, and it ended up kind of being like combined. So that's kind of cool. Happy accident, I would say. Okay, so I think like that should be pretty good. And just add the arms, some buttocks as well. So add some buttocks. I don't really know what a buttock would look like while climbing. I'd imagine maybe the exact same as like a squat or something. A little bit bulgier. That looks a little bit better. Man, I'm glad I added that part right there. So much clutch right there. Okay. It doesn't look like you can see him. Okay, so add the buttocks. I'm gonna add the arms. Kind of has to be like this, almost. Maybe one like that, one like this. We shall see. Okay, so if I add it like this, ooh, that's pretty good actually. So like that, almost. Pretty good, pretty good. Good thing about this one is that I don't have to add any of the chest muscles or any of the ab muscles because it's going to be hidden like this. I might not even actually. Oh, I do need to add the other arm. Okay. This is actually turning out very well. Better than I thought it was, at least. Sometimes you just have to pivot a little bit. Because I definitely wasn't planning this. I had something completely different. Maybe the next time I make a vase, I'll do it a little bit. I'll try to complete that first idea I had during this opening of this live. Kind of almost like he's riding like a in a car and driving, but he's not because his arms are hanging from a cliff. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so let me check this one more time. And I'm probably gonna have to use wires faux show for this. So I think about right there. Ooh, actually the side of it. Oh, that was good. Like right there, you can't really tell too much. Don't drop, don't drop, don't drop. Oh yeah, that's looking pretty good. If I really wanted to get fancy, I would definitely add some more detail, but I'm not that fancy. So we're not getting fancy. Now I gotta add the head. I'm gonna make probably a smaller head than that one. Add the neck. Man, I'm hungry. Add the neck. This neck isn't as beefy as the other one. Definitely a lot smaller. It's good. So I have to have it like that. Like that. Looking up pretty much, because when you're climbing something, you typically look up, not down, unless you're going down. But then you're not climbing anymore, or are you? Okay, so that actually looks decently good. It can also look like a zombie apocalypse almost. If I wanted to add more, but I think this one is good. Try to make it a little bit there. Okay, that's actually pretty solid. Okay, now let me cut some more of this wire off. Maybe a couple of them. One. Ooh, come on. Two. Okay, come on. Three. Okay. So let's see here. So I can like curl it, kind of like that. Let's just attach it in the actual. Let's get the smaller ones. I'm gonna attach it in there. A little bit deeper. Also, put some water down. Okay. Okay, that worked out pretty well. Right on the knee, pretty much. Let me water. Okay, I need at least one to stick. What I'm also going to do here is add the second wire here and just shove it in there. That's clay to cover that up. And I am almost done with this. This actually came out really well, especially because I didn't put that much detail into the characters, but it still came out pretty decent. That came out pretty decent. Look at this. I definitely wasn't planning something like this, but it definitely came out decently well. I'm gonna give myself a pat on the back. Hell yeah. That's actually really good. Awesome. Okay, well, that is today's live. Nothing went as planned, and that's okay. But that's all for today. Thank you so much.